They were within 8 minutes of abject failure anyway until Paul Kitson popped up with that. Those two old adversaries, Graham Taylor and David Pleat, faced each other for the second time in 12 days, and for the second time Wolves won it. Guy Whittingham with his 8th in 9 games. Good piece of borrowing from Aston Villa by Graham Turner before he left. Did neither team much good. As usual, Oxford up the tempo against highly placed rivals, and Matt Elliott's goal punished Leicester for some nervous defensive work. This was the goal of the game though, Mark Blake's first for Leicester since his move from Portsmouth. And when the going gets tough, Julian Jochin seems to get going. Ormondroyd slipped him through, pace and a cool head did the rest. That's when it began to come unstuck. John Willis's crunching tackle on Chris Allen earned him a second yellow card, and Leicester were down to 10 men. They couldn't quite adapt to the shortfall in numbers, and before you knew it, Allen was round the back without any illegalities. A good deep cross, but Paul Moody seemed to have nothing to beat for United's equaliser. Oxford believed they'd won it when Mark Druce appeared to prod the ball over the line. You have to say, though, that the referee was perfectly placed to see. Oxford's initial protest was muted and then Druce joined in. His verdict, delivered straight into the official's ear, ensured that only 20 men finished the game. Druce, the substitute, had graced the field for all of 3 minutes before disappearing whence he came. More sendings off at the Victoria Ground in a match which could have scuppered both promotion dreams. McSwegan's shot against the bar was the only action of note. We don't really want to make too much of Paul Devlin's dismissal for lashing out at Lee Sanford. In fact, Notts finished with 9 men when Phil Turner joined him for a second bookable offence. Portsmouth also lost a man, but it shouldn't detract from Birmingham's second away win of the season. Super little move for the first goal by Roger Willis on 6 minutes. It stayed like that until 9 minutes from the end when Steve Claridge went plundering in his never-say-die fashion. If Birmingham do pull off the incredible, Claridge should get the freedom of the city. Well, part of it anyway. A step closer to the title, which has looked destined for Selhurst Park since August. Eric Young's goal wrapped up a frustrating afternoon against the Barnsley battlers. Palace are up, Peterborough are down. The second issue of the division decided in a humiliating way at the Valley. Nelson's half-hit shot the start of a rout. Even he daren't show his face. The veteran striker was quite happy to acknowledge the second, as Charlton signalled their intention to hang on to the merest chance of a playoff place. Cooksey wasn't going to get a hand on that. Nor on this from Carl Leaburn. No wonder he was beside himself, Leaburn that is. How often did Charlton score 3 before half-time? The second half heaped more misery on poor old Peterborough. What was Pardew doing with so much space in which to attack the free kick? You know, United really wanted Nelson to get his hat-trick. They must have done. 2 defenders stood aside to allow him access, and a third helped to deflect the shot. Well done, Gary, but you won't have many afternoons as easy as this. It's difficult to see where Peterborough go from here. They only came up a couple of seasons ago, thanks to Ken Charlery in the playoff final. It's a big enough town to support First Division football, but despite Charlery's courageous deeds, they've blown it. Tranmere are determined to have another Merseyside presence in the Premiership, whether or not Everton stay. John Aldridge, missing from Ireland's victory in Holland, was at his best. With Millwall only half the side they are at home, Rovers went to town. A few minutes later, Kenny Irons seemed to have made it 3 points certain. And Aldo could hardly miss the third after Millwall caved in without a whimper. This was Tranmere back to their Coca-Cola Cup form. OK, Jamie Morley sneaked a reply when they temporarily went to sleep. But there wasn't any real danger until John Kerr, the substitute, reduced the lead to 1 goal. And in the end, Tranmere were relieved to cling on. Middlesbrough were denied that pleasure after Paul Wilkinson had rapped home their starter. The main course turned out to be unpalatable. Bolton polished off their lingering ambitions to get straight back into the big time. What a pity Wanderers have slipped out of contention themselves. They're still one of the best attacking teams in the division. McGinley was the player in touch, a 14-minute hat-trick for him after his close encounter with a post. Bruce Rioch must be wondering why his team is in the bottom half of the table when we know what they're capable of. Middlesbrough will vouch for it every bit as much as Everton, Villa and Arsenal. Here comes McGinley's third. He also scored for Scotland in midweek. I wonder how many of these players will still be at Burnden Park next season. And for the record, Scott Green made it 4 just before the whistle. Not much to report in a game which doesn't affect anything. Martin Smith with the only goal on 89 minutes. Watford allowed the Midlands relegation pack to breathe a short sigh of relief by refusing to stand in Scott Partridge's way. They levelled though through Paul Furlong. Who else? Beautifully controlled lob by the ex-Coventry man. And that's how we stand after today's game. Forest 6 points clear at the top of Tranmere with a game in hand. Down at the bottom, West Bromwich Albion just outside the relegation zone, 1 point clear of Birmingham, but only 1 game in hand now. And don't forget they meet on Wednesday in a real 6